combat sports, there's a golden rule. The biggest one always wins, until he doesn't. And what you'll see today are the exact moments when the giants truly made mistakes. This giant's name is Akebono, a former sumo yokozuna weighing 227 kilograms who decided that after dominating the dojo for years, he would honor the world of kickboxing with his enormous presence. One day, he faced Remy Bonjaski, the flying gentleman, barely 109 kilograms of Dutch precision in kickboxing. Akebono immediately started using his sumo tactics, pushing and shoving, as if he had forgotten that this wasn't a dojo and that there were real strikes involved. But Bonjaski was too fast, too technical, and too disciplined to be intimidated by a man who moved like a slow-loading game. So, the slimmer fighter decided to bring down the skyscraper from its foundations. He unleashed a devastating high kick that sent the 227-kilogram giant crashing to the canvas. The referee rushed in to intervene. Meanwhile, Akebono struggled to understand what had just happened. Bonjaski had just dismantled a half-ton legend, using only speed, precision, and timing. Bob Sapp, 170 kilos of walking chemical plant. But here's the twist. In this fight, he was the smallest one. Akebono brought his whole family to see his debut, a big mistake. Sapp immediately realized that his opponent had no defense against punches and started dropping bombs like a man with a score to settle. He knocked Akebono down like a fallen oak tree, then once again to the ground face first, in a position that made him look like a giant frog taking a nap. But Akebono clearly needed a third opinion on the matter. This hamburger titan is called Butterbean, 424 pounds of devastation that had crushed dozens of men with a single hand. One New Year's Eve, they served him up a 75-kilogram Japanese man named Genki Sudo. Instead of trading blows with the wrecking ball, Sudo immediately took a defensive stance and dragged Butterbean into his world. The ground. Butterbean, helpless like a beached whale on the canvas, had no answer. Sudo put him in a heel hook, and the 192-kilogram man submitted in less than 2 minutes. Sudo celebrated by dancing in the ring. Butterbean sat there wondering what had just happened. But Butterbean's nightmare wasn't over yet, because there was another smaller man patiently waiting to destroy his legs. Hongman Choi, the Korean Colossus, who stands 2.18 meters tall and weighs over 158 kilos. A man who had spent years writing down the names of his rivals in his death notebook and staring at each and every one of them from an impressive height. Even Badr Hari, The current K1 heavyweight champion genuinely had to look up when this man entered the room. Choi was not intimidated. He threw a powerful punch that sent Badr to the canvas. They got up immediately and started pounding the giant with ferocious body shots, like a man digging into a mountain with his own fists. By the end of the third round, Choi could barely stand. His corner, seeing their man turning into a live anatomy lesson, did something that had never been done before, and threw in the towel. Harry had just proven that even the biggest giants have organs, and those organs can absolutely be targeted, destroyed, and broken. And Choi had been away from combat sports for 6 years, maybe to recover, or maybe to reconsider his life choices, perhaps both. He came back. He was still 2.18 meters tall. He still gave off that aura of invincibility that his building-like appearance gave him, as if a skyscraper had learned to put on gloves. His opponent was Carlos Toyota, 30 centimeters shorter. Toyota circled cautiously. Then he decided that caution was overrated. He lunged forward and charged at full speed, sending the Korean giant straight to the gas station. April 30th, 1993, the first K1 World Grand Prix final in history. Ernesto Just, the man who would go on to win 4 world championships, was not yet a legend, and Branko Sikatic was about to make history. Just was controlling the pace. With only a few seconds left in the round, it looked like he would take it. Then Sikatic stepped forward with a left hook and a devastating right overhand that landed cleanly. Just was unconscious before he hit the canvas. Lebaner had already beaten Hunt once, knocking him down several times. So when Hunt picked him again in the K1 Grand Prix final, the whole stadium thought Hunt had gone crazy. From the first bell, Lebaner looked confident. In the second round, Hunt figured out Lebaner's combination and threw a right hand that landed perfectly on his jaw. Lebaner was unconscious before he hit the canvas. Hunt ended up winning the whole tournament that night. The story should have ended there. Lebaner came back 14 years later. October 5th, 2024. 51-year-old Lebaner returned to the ring for the first time in 14 years. His opponent KG was coming off 5 consecutive losses, so no one expected any problems. In the first round, Lebaner looked like the seasoned veteran he used to be. Then KG lunged forward, cornered the legend against the ropes, and threw a perfectly timed head kick. The K1 boss fell unconscious. Marcelo Garcia, weighing 77 kilograms, entered the absolute division, where there are no weight classes. His opponent was Rico Rodriguez, a former UFC heavyweight champion weighing 136 kilograms, with a 59 kilogram difference. No strikes allowed to even things out. No lucky punches. Just pure skill against pure size. Rodriguez tried to use his size to crush on Garcia, to crush and control Garcia. But Marcelo moved like water, flowing from one position to another, never allowing the heavyweight to establish anything close to control. Then Garcia took Rodriguez down, quickly moved into a heel hook, and Rodriguez tapped out almost immediately, knowing there was simply no way out. Igor Bobchanchin, a 100-kilogram Ukrainian wrecking ball. One principle: advance and destroy all. His rival Fred Floyd weighed 160 kilograms and spent the time before the fight trying to intimidate him. But Ihor didn't seem fazed. Floyd tried to chase him around the ring, but Ihor responded with brutal combinations that mercilessly targeted the giant's weakest points. Floyd kept moving until his own weight left him out of breath. Then, Ihor landed the combination that shut the giant's lights out with a single blow. On December 31, 2004, at K1 Premium, Dynamite Akebono faced another nightmare, Royce Gracie, the legend of Brazilian jiu-jitsu who revolutionized MMA. Royce weighed 180 pounds, Akebono 500, a difference of 320 pounds. From the opening bell, Royce closed the distance. But this time, the giant wasn't here to play. Akebono tried to use his weight and strikes to crush the Brazilian, believing that his size would save him. But Royce had other plans. The Gracie magic worked even against men 3 times bigger. Royce Gracie had already proven that giants can fall too. And Kujisa Minowa became a legend of Japanese MMA for a reason. He specialized in destroying giants. At just 1.75 meters and 185 pounds, Minowa looked like a regular guy you might see at the supermarket. But inside the ring, he was a giant killer. On May 26, 2009, Minowa faced Bob Sapp, the same Sapp who had just destroyed Akebono. The weight difference was absurd. Sapp outweighed Minowa by 190 pounds. It looked like he could bench press too. Minowa's, but Minowa didn't care. He had studied Sapp's weaknesses. As soon as the bell rang, he shot for a takedown, taking him to the ground. Sapp, desperate, tried to escape using his strength. But Minowa was already 2 steps ahead. Minowa took his back, grabbed his leg, and locked in a brutal Achilles lock. With the pressure increasing, Sapp did what he always did when things got tough. He gave up. The 375-pound monster had submitted to a man who weighed less than 200 pounds. Years earlier, a fighter weighing just 180 pounds faced an even larger giant. And that battle would not be so easy. Wagner, better known as Sulucinho, was a Brazilian monster who weighed 390 pounds. Standing at 2.03 meters with a huge reach, he had crushed opponents using pure strength and size. On December 31, 2005, at Pride Shockwave, Sulucinho faced Fedor Emelianenko, a sambo specialist who weighed 220 pounds. Next to him, Fedor looked like an ordinary guy. The difference was 125 pounds, and the odds favored the giant. But when the bell rang, Fedor didn't back down. He closed the distance and dropped the giant with a single blow. He tried to get up. Another blow sent him straight to the ground again. Fedor proved what all these fights have in common. Technique, endurance, and intelligence always beat size. Fedor crushed a 390-pound monster. But that doesn't compare to what happened in the biggest size mismatch in the history of combat sports. On March 5, 2011, at the K1 tournament in Budapest, Bob Sapp, the American beast weighing 170 kilograms, who terrified Japan and Europe, faced Kunkli Tibadar, a Hungarian Muay Thai champion weighing only 77 kilograms. When the fight started, Sapp charged in with heavy blows to end it in seconds. But Tibadar kept calm, with a tight guard, and waited for the exact moment. And then, the impossible happened. Sapp overextended with a punch, and Tibadar counterattacked with a clean punch that sent the giant to the ground. A 77-kilogram fighter had just knocked down the most intimidating physical specimen in the sport. Once again, it was clear. Size doesn't matter if you don't know how to use it. Mighty Mo is a 129-kilogram Samoan wrecking ball, capable of sending anyone to the afterlife with his nuclear fists. One day, the organizers gave him a light snack. A small Thai man named Kao Klai with a ridiculous weight difference of 59 kilograms between them. He started throwing punches like a sledgehammer, like a man crushing a fly with a manhole cover. But Kao Klai saved. His finishing move. He leaped into the air and landed a flying knee directly on Mo's jaw. The 129-kilogram giant collapsed like a crumbling building. A man who weighed half as much as him had just knocked him out with a move straight out of a martial arts movie. But if a flying knee can take down a giant, wait until you see what happens when a giant runs out of time in 21 seconds. Tomasz Czerwinski, considered at that time the heaviest MMA fighter in history. He weighed 174 kilograms. A man so big he had his own atmosphere. Next to him, Mark Potter, at 108 kilograms, looked like a man who got lost and ended up in the wrong zip code. Potter charged in immediately, sent the giant to the canvas, and finished with ground and pound until the referee stepped in to save him. But if 174 kilograms go down in 21 seconds, imagine what happens when a YouTuber steps into the ring with a man who looks like he was sculpted from marble. Josh Breckner, undefeated with the body of Apollo. Absolutely convinced that his muscles would crush the fat blogger. Salt Papi, a man whose training plan consisted of video games and double cheeseburgers. But as soon as the bell rang, Papi took total control, playing with Breckner as if he were a helpless child. In the end, he sent the Olympic-bodied giant straight to hell with a punch no one saw coming. The couch defeated the gym. Josh went home to rethink everything. But speaking of colossal humiliations, let's talk about what happens when 75 kilos go up against 192 kilos on New Year's Eve. Butterbean is still the king of 4-round fights, and he came prepared to destroy Mike in those 4 rounds. But Mike had other plans for the giant. From the first bell, Bernardo began to surgically destroy Butterbean's legs with brutal low kicks. Each one landed with a sickening thud, visibly melting the giant's foundation like hot water over ice. In the second round, with Butterbean's split destroyed, with Butterbean's legs completely destroyed and his mobility gone, Bernardo threw a perfect head kick that landed squarely on the giant's skull, knocking him unconscious. Now, some giants learn from being destroyed, and then there's Akebono, who took longer to learn. At this point, Akebono should have had his personal therapist on speed dial, because the fight organizers clearly had a vendetta. This time they matched him up with Royce Gracie, the 82-kilogram Brazilian jiu-jitsu legend who had already turned the early UFC into his personal playground. 82 kilograms versus 227 kilograms, a difference of 145 kilograms. From the very beginning, Royce closed the distance, got his grips, and Gracie's magic worked its dark magic even against a man almost 3 times his size. Now that we've established that Akebono was a problem for everyone, let's formally introduce the other recurring villain in this video, Bob Sapp. At that point in his career, Bob Sapp had knocked out the 4-time K1 champion Ernesto Hoost twice. He was considered almost invincible, but Ray Sefo didn't agree. Sapp moved forward like a steamroller, throwing devastating punches. Sefo survived the first round, picking his shots patiently. At 29 seconds into the second round, Sefo landed a devastating counter, right hand to the giant's jaw, and the beast fell to the ground. proving that being a 158-kilogram nightmare means nothing when someone with real technique decides they've had enough. Nikolai Baluev, the beast from the east, 2 meters tall, 143 kilos, WBA heavyweight champion. Next to him, David Hayes, weighing 95 kilos, looked like a cruiserweight who had ended up in the wrong division. But Hayes didn't come here to be daunted by the architecture. Round after round, Hayes outperformed the giant, exposing the fundamental truth that size means absolutely nothing without the speed to land your punches or the defense to dodge your opponent's punches. By the decisive rounds, the 143-kilogram Colossus was exhausted. Each punch was slower. His guard collapsed, and Hayes destroyed him with pinpoint precision over 12 full rounds. When the final bell rang, David Hayes walked away as the new WBA heavyweight champion. He had just outlasted a man who outweighed him by more than 45 kilograms over 12 full rounds. But we've saved the most recognizable name in this video for last, because the universe saved the most satisfying moment for the end. Bob Sapp. Still huge, still holding the title of the dirtiest rat in combat sports, still choosing opponents he thought would be a piece of cake. This time, Sapp's snack was a 47-year-old Hungarian named Kunkli Tibadar, weighing 77 kilograms. Sapp outweighed him by 93 kilograms and was completely relaxed. Sapp charged forward, throwing heavy punches meant to end everything right away. But Tibadar kept calm, held his guard steady, and waited with the patience of a man who had done his homework and then done it again. Then, when Sapp overreached with another wild punch, Tibadar countered with a precise blow that sent the 170-kilogram monster crashing to the canvas. The old man didn't just survive the beast. He taught him a lesson, like a strict grandfather teaching a spoiled grandson. A lesson he will never ever forget. The saga of Bob Sapp had officially come to an end. But what about a man who decided to destroy not just one giant in a single night, but two? A South African giant, 2.11 meters tall and 151 kilograms. A man like Jan Norge, South African giant. 2.11 meters, 151 kilograms. Jew was a light heavyweight at 93 kilograms who was giving up 28 centimeters and 58 kilograms. The image resembled a comedy sketch. Jew attacked fearlessly. He took down the giant and unleashed devastating blows, until the referee had to step in to save what was left of Norge. One round and a giant destroyed. But here's the key. It wasn't over yet. The same night, the same arena, and the same Sokutju. But in the semi-finals, the beast himself was waiting for him. Bob Sapp, 159 kilos of muscle, had just smashed a giant weighing 151 kilos 20 minutes earlier, and he wasn't going to slow down at all. From the first bell, the African assassin attacked with the same fearless energy, refusing to let Sapp stand his ground, constantly circling him and throwing punches. Sapp tried to grab him. Sokutju exploded with a takedown, throwing the 159-kilogram beast to the ground, as if he were a sack of wet concrete. Sokutju had officially become the most dangerous-looking ordinary person in the history of combat sports. At the 2005 ADCC, the most prestigious grappling tournament in the world, one of the most incredible displays of pure skill took place. Marcelo Garcia, weighing only 170 pounds, competed in the absolute category, where there are no weight divisions. There he faced Rico Rodriguez, former UFC heavyweight champion, with 300 pounds, a difference of 130 pounds. No strikes, just technique against strength. Rodriguez tried to crush and control with his size, but Marcelo flowed like water, changing positions, denying every attempt at control. Then he did the impossible. He swept a man who outweighed him by 130 pounds, took dominant position, and transitioned to a heel hook. Rodriguez tapped immediately, knowing there was no escape. A 170-pound man had just submitted a former 300-pound champion in pure grappling. In jiu-jitsu, technique is the great equalizer. At the time of this fight, Andrei Arlovski was already known as Pitbull, already a very dangerous and experienced fighter, which made the challenge for his opponent almost impossible. That opponent was Vyacheslav Datsik, 16 years old and making his professional debut. The entire first round was a real execution. Pitbull dominated and Datsik took the hits. The difference in experience was obvious from any seat in the arena. But just moments later, the teenage debutant unexpectedly sent Arlovski to dreamland with a punch that no one in the arena saw coming. The 16-year-old had just knocked out a future UFC champion. At Inoki Bombaye 2002, we witnessed one of the most dramatic size mismatches in Japanese MMA. Naoya Ogawa, a 230-pound Olympic judoka, faced Antonio Giant Silva, a Brazilian colossus weighing 385 pounds and standing 7 feet 2 inches tall. From the opening bell, the giant seemed to have the advantage, but Ogawa had spent his life taking down huge men. Within seconds, he closed the distance, clinched, and used pure judo to take the giant down to the ground. Once there, size stopped mattering. Ogawa controlled, struck, and dominated until the referee stepped in. While Ogawa used judo to take down his giant, the next fighter would use pure technique to surprise the world. Mariusz Pudzianowski, 5-time world's strongest man. A name that resonates throughout the world of strength sports. He came in with a plan to take down Peter Graham by crushing him with hammer fists and his own body weight. And for most of the first round, it worked. In the second round, Pudzianowski tried a desperate takedown, failed, and ended up lying on his back with no defense at all. Hafthor Bjornsson, the mountain from Game of Thrones. He was so confident in his size that he challenged UFC fighter and black belt in jiu-jitsu, Gunnar Nelson. He had no idea he was signing his own death sentence. He wrapped himself around Bjornsson like an anaconda, cutting off every escape until the mountain had no choice but to surrender. Even the most famous giant in television history surrendered. Muscles don't matter in a real fight. They just make the submission look better on camera. In 2014, a 17-year-old named Tenshin Nasukawa made his professional debut. The student who would become a global superstar. He faced Tomo Aramatsu, who was 9 years older than him and was expected to win easily. Nasukawa immediately started pounding Aramatsu with a ballet-like elegance that you wouldn't expect from a teenager. Since he wasn't one to waste time, the young prodigy didn't beat around the bush and soon unleashed his wildest high kick of the night, knocking Aramatsu out. "119 kilograms of muscle and overconfidence, coming out like a ball of fire, hands flying, and absolutely no respect for his opponent's power." His opponent was Kirill Sidelnikov, 19 years old, 104 kilograms, and from Fedor Emelianenko's own Red Devil fight team, which moved forward with his hands down throughout the entire fight, throwing punches like a man who truly believed that size alone would be enough to finish his opponent. But Sidelnikov stayed patient, moving his head and waiting for his moment. Then, the right hook landed squarely on his chin, and Sultic fell to the canvas, completely disoriented. Mikhail Koklyaev, Russian strongman, a powerhouse who broke records, a man who had bent steel, lifted impossible weights, and earned the respect of everyone in the world of strength sports. He challenged Alexander Emelianenko, younger brother of Fedor, a professional fighting machine who had been training to hurt people long before the idea had even occurred to Koklyaev. But as soon as the professional started fighting with full force, that carefully built pile of muscles quickly turned into something very different. Let's start with the craziest size mismatch in the history of kickboxing. In the final of the K1 World Grand Prix 2004, the legendary Thai fighter Khaoklai Kenorsing stepped into the ring weighing just 154 pounds to face Mighty Mo, a Samoan giant weighing 285 pounds, almost twice his weight. Khaoklai wasn't fighting in his weight class, not even in the same sporting universe. Mo came out looking like he could eat Khaoklai for breakfast. The difference was so great it resembled a father-son sparring session. He didn't enter the ring just to survive. He stepped in to win. The Thai fighter moved like water, dodging the giant's hammer blows and responding with lightning-fast combinations. And then Khaoklai did the unthinkable. He jumped, spun his whole body in the air, and landed a perfect flying knee right on Mighty Mo's jaw. The 285-pound giant fell to the ground like a collapsing building. The referee counted to 10. A man who weighed half as much had just brutally knocked him out, with a technique worthy of the ring, but completely real. But if a flying knee can take down a giant, the pure mastery of Brazilian jiu-jitsu can do something even worse.